preserve our constitutional republic, we need an informed and educated citizenry. And that's what this show is all about. Find out what's really happening. It's time to stop the lies and learn the truth. This is The Real Story with your host, Jeanne Ives.
The great state of Illinois, a state of small towns, America's richest farmland, and the magnificent city of Chicago. But today, Illinois is in crisis.
Illinois is ranked last in fiscal health by a lot.
We have the lowest credit rating in the United States.
Our bonds are at junk level.
We have a structural debt of about $9 billion a year.
The state is home to the highest property taxes and the worst pension crisis in America. People and businesses are leaving in droves.
Every other state has addressed these issues, and we still have not.
State government is broken. Today, Illinois' budget is a political pawn.
This is uncharted territory. Truly, for any state in the union, never has gone a full year without a budget being passed.
I think the status quo has failed us.
The question remains, are things getting better?
In Chicago and across the state, the grumbles are growing louder. Hundreds of activists frustrated with the deepening dysfunction in Springfield.
We've always gone through periods when our democracy seems stuck. We have to find a new way of doing business.
Many blame Illinois' notorious political machine for the crisis. But what exactly is the machine? And who runs it?
You have to look at who's been in charge. And who's been in charge for the longest and had the most power and the most influence. And there's one person, and that's Mike Madigan.
Well, there you go, folks. That was the truth spoken during the Illinois Policy Action movie, Madigan, Power, Privilege, and Politics. And here to discuss that movie is the chairman of the Illinois Policy Institute, which put out that movie. John Tillman, thank you so much for joining me on The Real Story. What is your takeaway from the Madigan conviction and after running a movie like you did?
Well, Jeanne, first of all, thanks for having me. And it's so fun to hear that again because it's been a while. We brought that movie out in 2016. I walked into the marketing team's office run then by Ryan Green right after Labor Day, and I said, I want to make a movie about Mike Madigan and tell the people of Illinois the truth about who he is, what he's done to our state, and how it's harming not just everyone, but especially the poor and disadvantaged. And I said, I want it out by Labor Day. And Ryan Green looked at me like, you're crazy. But we got it out by mid-September, and that movie was eventually watched by over 2 million people in part or in whole. And it really changed the dialogue about who Mike Madigan was and what he was doing. And when I look now, all these years later on the conviction, I think a little bit of satisfaction. But what breaks my heart is that this guy has been the nexus of a state's entire political environment that is focused on what I call a government-centric point of view rather than a people or citizen-centric point of view. All things in Illinois, if you're running a business, if you're running a nonprofit, if you're trying to help people through running a hospital or anything you do in Illinois, it all runs through the government lens. And that is what this trial showed. That's what these convictions showed, is that he and all of his compatriots, both on the Republican and Democrat side, helped to create this government-centric point of view that has harmed the people of Illinois. And that's the part that I find so sad about it.
Well, and unfortunately, that sort of sentiment still continues today, where they really do look to the government for the solutions, and rather than other states like you see in Florida and Texas, where they're attempting to give people more power over their own money. Governor DeSantis even floated the idea of eliminating a property tax, for heaven's sakes. We're just way behind because all we have is people literally looking towards government for every aspect of their lives to control it. And they seem to like it. And that to me, John, I don't understand. And that to me is a scary thing because they have been coddled for so many years to look for government.
Well, that's the scary thing about the nature of people, our average fellow citizens, and the nature of government. There's two kinds of politicians. There's the kind that you just described. And I think the COVID crisis from 2020 to 2021 and 2022 really illustrated the difference. There's the politician who sees government and governmental power as a tool to try to empower people to live their best life, to create agency, to let individuals find the best path for their version of the American dream. That's Governor DeSantis, that was Governor Abbott in Texas, and many others. And then there's those who see the power of government for them to decide how we all should live our lives, to dictate the terms upon which we live our lives. That was Governor Pritzker, that was Governor Whitmer, and so many others. And we see that in Mike Madigan. His idea was that I am going to wield power to make money for myself and my friends and control the way we all live our lives. That is such a contrary view to what the founding of this country is about. And the only way back for the state of Illinois is if Republicans begin to understand that and stop trying to have a seat at the table to negotiate on their terms, and instead of present the people of Illinois with a completely alternative point of view to empower them instead of empowering the government.
Yes, so shortly after the 2016 election, the budget impasse was still in place. And actually, the big corruption bill for which Mike Madigan is indicted is that Exelon bailout bill of 2016. It passed December 1st in the House. And, massive bailout. But that deal was really the crux of the issue with the ComEd, what they really wanted, ComEd, Exelon being really one and the same at that point, not separated. And, so your movie got attention. We loved it as conservatives. We're like, great, the truth is here. Maybe we'll get a change. Picked up, I think, a couple seats, got out of the super majority. But honestly, it still wasn't enough. And by July, 15 surrender Republicans surrendered to a 32% permanent tax increase. And, and so you're right, Republicans have been part of the problem too, not explaining also to the people what's going on. And from then on, honestly, John, the budget negotiations became just capitulations. Nobody stood their ground on our side.
Well, Jeanne, you're one of the very few people who understands what I'm about to say, who actually served in your case, the House. I used to say to former House Republican leader Tom Cross and as well as to Jim Durkin that, you have to put a stake in the ground and stake out what you believe in that is completely contrary and different than what the Democrats are doing. And you have to rally people to the cause. And that cause should be to reduce the tax and regulatory burden on the people of the state of Illinois and make this a place where people want to come and raise their family, start a business, and stay here to live a better life. All around us, Iowa, even to some degree in Wisconsin, certainly in Indiana, to some degree in Missouri and Kentucky, people are choosing those states over our state because they have better economic opportunity. We have the highest tax burden in the Midwest, and people are moving with their feet, using their feet to leave the state. And they're not doing it because of the weather. They're moving to other cold weather states. And the point of this is that the Democrat majority, with too many Republicans who go along with it, are going along with this idea of a government-centric point of view. The Republicans in this state have to stake out a pro-citizen, pro-free market, pro-robust growth by reducing taxes and the burden. But what that requires, as you know better than anybody, Jeanne, is you have to take on the government unions. And they're not willing to do that on either side of the aisle. And until the Republicans become willing to do that and make the moral argument, we're in a difficult spot.
Okay, we only have a couple minutes before I have to go to break. So do you see any hope in Illinois, given what Trump was able to do? He picked up a few more percentage points here in terms of turnout. And there's certainly movement and momentum. And Trump's plans are very appealing. And especially with the Doge exercise, I think people are now wanting to do a Doge exercise in every single state.
Yes, I actually, ironically, despite everything I just said, I'm as optimistic as I've ever been for exactly the reasons you point out. Who would have thought, Jeanne, that President Trump is more popular in the city of Chicago than the current mayor, Brandon Johnson? His approval rating is at 14%. Trump just got 22% of the city of Chicago to vote for him. So that's a sign that rationality might be returning and that people are able to be persuaded. Secondly, Trump did way better in the statewide election, never having spent any money. I think he only lost by roughly 9 points. And that is a huge improvement over 17-point losses previously by him and Romney and others in the past. And voters are not static. Voters actually do learn and listen and observe. We've seen this in other states that have moved from being blue or purple to being red. Florida is a great example. I'm actually talking to you from the state of Florida. It used to be a swing state. It is now a solidly red state. And this is going on all over the country. Illinois is not lost if we get great leadership by people like you on your radio show, if you ever choose to run for office again, and anybody else that puts their hat in the ring. If they put out the proper pro-citizen, pro-free market point of view, I think the people of Illinois will swing to that cause.
Great. He's John Tillman, chairman of the Illinois Policy Institute, and he has a lot of other hats that he wears as well. He's very much involved in the freedom movement. Thank you so much for joining me. I know that you've got company at home, so I appreciate you sharing your insight with our audience. This is The Real Story with Jeanne Ives. We'll be right back after this break.